Jacquette Timmons is a financial behavior expert I've known forever. She's brilliant. She is one of those women you hear when you hear about black women CEOs being the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs, the CEO of Sterling Investments. And she counsels, teaches people about investing. Share with us some wisdom on couples and money.
Sure. Well, good evening, everybody. Hello. I'm Jacquette Timmons. I am a financial behaviorist, and I am also the author of a book called Financial Intimacy: How to Create a Healthy Relationship with Your Money and Your Mate. And one of the things that Stacy mentioned was that when we're talking about money, or when you are arguing about money, that you are really not arguing about money. And I think one of the things that people overlook is that, to me, money is a communication tool. It is the way that you tap into each other's values, each other's beliefs, expectations. And when you're fighting about money, that's really what you are trying to negotiate and navigate your emotions around money. And I want to give you a really quick example. If I were to give everybody in here $1 and ask you to come back in a month and tell me, what did you do with that dollar? Everybody would have a different reaction or response to what they did with it. Some of you might come back and say, I saved it and now I have $2. Or you might come back and say you invested it and now it's 20. Another group of you might come back and say, girl, I spent that, I don't have any money left. Or you might say you didn't do anything with it. So imagine if each of us in here could do something different with our money, what that looks like when two people get together. And I will tell you, I have been doing behavioral-based financial coaching for close to 20 years. Rarely do I have folks that are on the same page in the way that Gia and DJ Envy are. Because people typically come to me and they fall into one of a few categories. Either they're really good at communicating and the love part of their relationship is rock solid, but the numbers is really funky. Or the numbers are funky, but the communication is off the chain, or they're somewhere in between. And I'm thinking of one of the couples that I worked with where they lived together for 4 years before they got married. She came from more of a traditional household. Her father was an entrepreneur. The mother was a stay-at-home mom and took care of all of the bills. He came from a family of divorce, so he never saw his parents actually manage money together. When they got married, she just assumed that they were going to do what her parents did, and he just assumed that they were going to do what his parents did. And you would think they lived together for 4 years. Why did they not have this conversation? And so oftentimes what is missing is that people make assumptions about what they think the other person is going to do and going to agree with, and they're not clear and they're not honest with themselves about what their own expectations are. So I know we're going to go into Q&A after we hear from Angela, but if I could just leave you with a couple of nuggets. Number one, you don't manage money, you manage your choices around money. Really hold on to that and think about what are the emotions that are driving the choices that you make. Number two, think of money as a communication tool. So if you are making a decision, what is it actually prompting you to explore and investigate, and how is it helping you to indeed tap into those things that make you feel vulnerable, that perhaps make you feel shameful, or that perhaps make you feel really proud, and how do you want to share that with the other person? And then we can talk about any of your questions that you have after.
Only thing I'm going to say is I got my own bank account. I don't share my money with anybody. I'm not married, so all this is not anything I've ever had to deal with. But I do have one question. How important you think when you meet somebody and you're in a relationship, is it that they have good credit or they're not in debt? Because is it an indication that somebody maybe wouldn't be a great choice for you if they're not great like that? Like, say their credit score is super low and you're very responsible. Say they have a whole mountain of debt and now you take on that debt if you decide to get married. What are some things that you would say as far as finances before? You know, because obviously you guys were together for so long.
Our credit was horrible, though.
You guys probably established it together.
Yeah, but like the bad thing is I knew nothing about credit.
Right.
You know, so coming out of college, I remember trying to get our first crib, we couldn't get it. You know, the interest rates were so high because our credit was so low. You know, you got college loans, and college you get these credit cards, and I was buying systems and bazookas and all types of stupid stuff, and when I got out, I was like, I ain't gotta pay it. I just keep it moving. And then when you get out, when you get out, you realize, and my credit was shot. You know, and most people don't understand that. They just feel like, oh, they're gonna give me this credit card, I can use it. I'm gonna pay the minimum $10 a month and keep it moving. But my credit was shot. But it took me a long time to get it back to where it needed to be, because and her credit was shot too. I remember, I'm gonna tell a story. I remember,
Baguettes?
No, not baguettes. Yeah, it was baguettes. We bought this dog named Baguettes, and we used our credit card, and we just never paid. And
It was a gift.
it was a gift, and I used your credit card actually. And what happened was, you know, I didn't think anything about it. And when we got married, the first year we got married, the IRS was supposed to send us back a check, and they took it. And I called. I was like, "Why'd you take my money?" And it was like, "Well, your wife owes the government so much." I'm like, "That ain't my wife. We just got married." But no matter, when you marry, you gotta understand that your wife's credit or your husband's credit reflects everything now. You know.
Yeah, one of the things I would say, because I don't know if you know that a couple of years ago there was this whole rage around credit score dating. For me, I think the question is, what's the why behind? Because maybe the person has poor credit because they started a business and it flopped. Like, what's the why? And not only, you know, what is the why, but when did it happen? How long have they been battling this bad credit? And then what's your game plan? And not only what is your game plan, but what are you doing every single day to work on that game plan? So I wouldn't necessarily mix someone because they didn't have great credit, but I would want to know why, what's your game plan, and what are you doing every day to work on that game plan? Because you can have a game plan and not work it. And
What
that's
if
not doing
they
it.
ask you to co-sign for something?
No, never co-sign. No. And I would also say that, you know, people are getting married at a later age after they built up their careers, etc. I'm not so certain that you should not do a prenup. I think some situations should call for a prenup. So don't co-sign for anything unless you are indeed married, and you might want to consider doing a prenup in certain situations.
And what if the why isn't satisfactory to you?
It's then that addition to the why.
Then don't do it. Yeah,
Okay.
if the why is not satisfactory to you, if you're like, that's BS or that's crazy, yeah, don't do it.
But addition, what's very important when it comes to when you're checking out things like a credit score is how you feel about it. Some people cannot stand debt under any circumstance. So if you're going to be on that different pages about debt, and again, one of the top reasons people go into debt is illness, job loss, divorce. So it's again about much more than a credit score. It's the why, but again, it's how you feel about it. Sometimes, I know, starting a business sometimes, if you want to finance that business, start it for yourself. Some people, particularly entrepreneurial people, might not be afraid to tap into their retirement savings, take a risk with their credit. That's just part of their nature, and that's going to be reflected in their credit score. Some people couldn't possibly live with that. So again, one of the greatest things about money is you can see where you're different, but it all comes down to what can you live with. And these two are fantastic, and what Jacquette was also tapping on is a lot of the reasons that financial experts tell you to have your own money is because when you're in a relationship, that exactly what you're saying, the other person's credit history is going to affect your credit history. What is it, within 3 years after divorce, 42% of women are bankrupt, file bankruptcy, and when you look at the number of people getting divorced, 87% of all elderly people in poverty are women. So having your own financial independence is not necessarily a testament to how you feel about your partner, but it's also keeping yourself secure so a lot of that financial stress doesn't come into a marriage or relationship.
And can I also say, and this is one of the couples that I interviewed for my book, don't always judge a book by its cover. So, woman meets guy. Guy goes to an Ivy League college, gets his MBA, working, doing the whole consulting thing. So on paper, he looks like a catch. And every single time they're going out, he's picking up everything. They get married. Well, That's when she realizes that his business is not doing as well as she assumed it was. That's when she realizes, when they do their taxes, that, oh shoot, he took a loan from his 401k, and now they've got this six-figure tax bill that she wasn't expecting. And then when they get divorced, she, someone who worked really, really, really hard to buy her own apartment, almost had to sell it and split the proceeds with him once they got divorced. So you want to make sure that you are asking the right questions, that you're asking questions, and that you're not making presumptions based simply on how things look, because it's not always as it appears.